Our farmer rescued 3 abandoned triplets under a bridge. Years later, a helicopter lands at his door. The sun had barely peaked over the horizon when Jack woke up, just as he had done every day for the past 20 years. The creaking of the old wooden bed echoed through the empty bedroom, a constant reminder of his loneliness. His tired eyes scanned the peeling walls, decorated only with a few yellowed photos of happier times. Moving mechanically, Jack got dressed and descended the creaky stairs of his farmhouse. The kitchen, with its smell of freshly brewed coffee and slightly burnt toast, was the only place that still seemed to have any life. Outside, the rooster crowed, announcing yet another day of hard work. Jack grabbed his faded mug, filling it with the strong coffee that was his only companion on those silent mornings. Through the kitchen window, he gazed at the fields stretching as far as the eye could see. The farm, once vibrant and full of life, now felt as solitary as its owner. With a heavy sigh, Jack slipped on his worn boots and stepped into the crisp morning air. The dew dampened the grass under his feet as he headed for the barn. The animals greeted him with their familiar sounds, the only conversation he had for most of his days. After feeding the animals and checking the fences, Jack decided to take a walk around the property. His steps led him down a familiar path to the old wooden bridge spanning the creek at the back of his land. It was a place where he used to fish with his father many years ago. As he approached the bridge, something unusual caught his attention. A subtle movement, almost imperceptible, coming from beneath the structure. Jack frowned. Curiosity awakened. Cautiously, he leaned over the railing, trying to get a better look. That's when he saw them. 3 small figures huddled together in the shadows under the bridge. For a moment, Jack thought his eyes were deceiving him. But then one of them moved, revealing a dirty, frightened face, and his heart raced. "Hello?" he called softly, his voice husky from lack of use. The figures curled up even more, clearly scared. Jack carefully made his way down the creek bank, approaching slowly. As he got closer, he could see clearly now. They were 3 little girls, no older than 5. Their hair was tangled, their clothes dirty and torn. Large, frightened eyes watched him with a mix of fear and hope. "It's okay," Jack said gently. "I'm not going to hurt you." One of the girls, seemingly the bravest, took a step forward. "Where's Mommy?" she asked, her voice trembling. Jack's heart clenched. He knelt down so he was at their level. "I don't know, sweetheart. Can you tell me how you got here?" The 3 exchanged glances, confused and scared. The same little girl spoke again. "We don't remember. We're hungry." A wave of protectiveness washed over Jack, a feeling he hadn't experienced in years. Without a second thought, he offered his hand. "Come with me. Let's get you something to eat, and then we'll figure out what to do." Hesitant, the girls approached. Jack noticed how similar they looked, triplets, he realized. Slowly they took his hand, trusting this kind stranger. As they walked back to the farm, Jack knew he should call the authorities, but something inside him hesitated. He looked at the 3 girls, so vulnerable and frightened, and imagined them being separated, taken to different homes. The farmhouse, which had seemed so empty and lifeless just minutes ago, now beckoned him with the promise of shelter and comfort for these lost little souls. Jack made his decision. He would take them in, feed them, and give them a safe place to sleep. And after that, well, then he would decide the next step. As they neared the house, the sun finally rose fully in the sky, bathing the farm in golden light. To Jack, it felt like a new dawn, not just for the day, but for his life. The girls, still holding his hands, looked at the house with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. Jack felt a pang in his chest, a long-forgotten sense of purpose and responsibility. "Welcome," he said softly, opening the front door. The girls entered timidly, their wide eyes exploring this unfamiliar space. Jack watched them for a moment, standing on the threshold. The house, which for so long echoed only his solitary footsteps, was now filled with the presence of 3 small lives. He didn't know what the future held, but at that moment, Jack felt he had found something he didn't even realize he was looking for. With a deep breath, he closed the door behind him, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The rescue under the bridge was only the beginning of a journey that would change everyone's lives in ways none of them could have imagined. Dawn brought a symphony of sounds to Jack's farm. The crowing of roosters mingled with the distant mooing of cows and the soft rustling of leaves in the wind. But this morning, a new sound joined the familiar melody, the quiet whispers of three young voices. Jack woke up with a start, momentarily confused by the unusual noises. Reality hit him like a wave, the girls, the bridge, his impulsive decision. He got up quickly, heart racing, and took the stairs two at a time. In the living room, he found Emma, Olivia, and Ava huddled together on the old couch, their wide eyes fixed on him. The silence that followed was palpable, heavy with uncertainty and fear. "Good morning, girls," Jack said gently, trying to smile. "Who's hungry?" The three exchanged glances, as though silently deciding who would speak. It was Emma, the one who seemed the bravest, who finally nodded. In the kitchen, Jack faced an unexpected challenge. What did 5-year-olds eat for breakfast? His gaze roamed his sparse pantry, finally landing on a half-empty box of cereal. It would have to do. As the girls timidly ate, Jack observed every move, every expression. Olivia, the quietest, barely touched her food. Ava, on the other hand, devoured her cereal with gusto, while Emma alternated between eating and eyeing Jack warily. The days that followed were a whirlwind of adjustments and learning. Jack turned the old guest room into a cozy space for the girls, painting the walls a soft yellow and improvising 3 beds with whatever he could find. The nights were the hardest. Nightmares were frequent, and more than once, Jack found himself sitting on the floor between their beds, holding trembling little hands and whispering words of comfort until sleep returned. Over the weeks, a routine began to take shape. Mornings were spent on simple farm chores, with Jack teaching the girls how to feed the chickens or gather fresh eggs. Afternoons were reserved for backyard playtime or, on rainy days, drawing sessions at the kitchen table. Slowly, the unique personalities of the triplets began to shine through. Emma, always the leader, took charge of every activity, her insatiable curiosity leading her to ask 1,000 questions a day. Olivia, the most introspective, found solace in Jack's old bookshelf, often getting lost in imaginary worlds. And Ava revealed herself to be a budding artist, her colorful drawings soon decorating every free surface in the house. One day, while Jack was hanging clothes on the line, he heard a scream coming from the barn. His heart froze. Running as fast as he could, he found Emma at the top of a stack of hay, laughing gleefully while her sisters watched from below, half scared, half in awe. "Emma!" Jack exclaimed, relief quickly replaced by worry. "It's dangerous to climb up there by yourself." Still smiling, the girl climbed down with surprising agility. "But I'm not by myself, Uncle Jack. You're here to catch me if I fall." Those simple words struck Jack like lightning. Uncle Jack. It was the first time any of them had called him that. Swallowing the lump in his throat, he knelt down, meeting the girl's eyes. "Yes, I'm here," he said, his voice husky with emotion. "I'll always be here for you." As summer progressed, the farm seemed to come alive again. The sound of the girls' laughter echoed through the fields, mingling with the bees buzzing and the rustling of the corn stalks. Jack, who had lived in a silent world for so long, now found himself immersed in a symphony of life and joy. Not that it was all easy. There were hard days, when the girls' traumatic memories resurfaced, bringing on bouts of tears and fear. On one particularly challenging night, Jack found the three huddled together in one bed, trembling and whispering to each other. "What happened?" he asked gently, sitting on the edge of the bed. Ava answered, her voice barely audible. "We had a bad dream about the day we got lost." Jack's heart clenched. Gently, he pulled them into a protective hug. "You're safe now," he murmured. "Nothing bad will happen to you here." That night, Jack stayed up long after the girls had drifted back to sleep, his mind awhirl with thoughts. He knew he couldn't erase their past, but he was determined to give them a future filled with love and security. Over time, the nightmares became less frequent. The girls began exploring the farm with greater confidence, turning every corner into a new playground. The old rusty tractor became a spaceship, the chicken coop an enchanted castle, and the creek under the bridge, once a place of fear, now the stage for imaginative adventures. One day, while watching the triplets play in the yard, Jack noticed something that took his breath away. They were happy, truly happy. And he realized with surprise, so was he. The farm, which had for so long been merely a place of work and loneliness, now pulsed with a new energy. The girls' laughter was like music, filling every corner with joy. The fields, once just a source of sustenance, now hosted impromptu picnics and treasure hunts. That night, after putting the girls to bed, Jack sat on the porch, gazing at the stars, the vastness of the night sky, which once made him feel small and alone, now felt like a protective blanket draped over his newly formed family. Family. The word echoed in his mind, bringing a wave of emotions. He knew there were still many issues to resolve, legal matters, the girl's mysterious past, his own lack of preparation for fatherhood. But under the starry sky, Jack felt a deep certainty. They belonged together. With a contented sigh, he rose and went inside. In the hallway, he paused briefly at the girl's bedroom door. The soft sound of their breathing was like a lullaby to his tired soul. "Good night, my little ones," he whispered before heading to his own room. As he lay down, Jack reflected on how much his life had changed in such a short time. The farm, once a reflection of his solitude, was now a true home. And he, who had been just Jack the lonely farmer, was now Uncle Jack, guardian and protector of 3 precious hearts. With that comforting thought, Jack closed his eyes, ready to face whatever tomorrow might bring, for he was no longer alone. Now, he had a family. The office on the top floor of the glassy skyscraper was a monument to wealth and power. Ethan Morrison, at 50, was the embodiment of corporate success. His impeccable suit and commanding posture contrasted with the weariness in his eyes, visible only to those who looked closely. On that Friday afternoon, the setting sun painted the city skyline in shades of orange and red, a spectacle Ethan barely noticed. His fingers drummed on the polished mahogany desk as he stared at the computer screen, lost in thought. A gentle knock on the door pulled him back to reality. His assistant, Margaret, entered with a stack of documents. "Mr. Morrison, here are the reports you asked for." "And," she hesitated, "we found this while organizing the old archives." Margaret placed a dusty box on the desk. Ethan frowned, not recognizing it. "Thank you, Margaret. You can head home now. Have a good weekend." Alone again, Ethan opened the box curiously. Inside, he found a jumble of items, old receipts, faded business cards, and at the bottom, a yellowed envelope. Something about the envelope caught his attention. The delicate handwriting on the address was strangely familiar. Carefully, he opened it, feeling the fragile paper between his fingers. As his eyes scanned the lines, the world around him seemed to fade away. The letter was from Marie, the name he had worked so hard to forget over the years. "Dear Ethan, I know we promised it would be just one night, no strings attached, no complications. But life has a funny way of turning our plans upside down. I'm pregnant, Ethan, and it's not just that. It's triplets. I know this isn't what you wanted, that your career has always been your priority. I'm not asking for anything, I just thought you should know. I'll raise them on my own. They'll have all my love, and I hope that will be enough. Goodbye, Ethan. I wish you all the happiness in the world. With love, Marie." Ethan let the letter fall onto the desk, feeling as though the ground had vanished beneath him. Triplets. He had daughters, 3 daughters he had never met. With trembling hands, he looked for the postmark on the envelope. 8 years. The letter was 8 years old. A wave of emotions hit him. Shock, guilt, anger at himself. How could he not have known? How had this letter remained hidden for so long? Memories of Marie flooded his mind, her radiant smile, her contagious laughter. The night they spent together, an impulsive getaway during a business trip. He had promised himself it would be just that, one night. His career was taking off. There was no room for complications. Now, 8 years later, sitting in his luxurious office overlooking the city, Ethan realized the true cost of his choices. Standing abruptly, he walked over to the window. Below, the city pulsed with life, people returning home to their families he never had. "Margaret," he called, his voice echoing in the empty office. Silence. Of course, he had sent her home. It was Friday night, and he was alone. As always, with renewed determination, Ethan returned to his desk and turned on his computer. His fingers flew across the keyboard as he searched for any information he could find about Marie. Hours passed. Night fell completely over the city, but Ethan hardly noticed. Each new piece of information was like a piece of a painful puzzle. Marie had moved shortly after sending the letter. There were no records of her or the children in recent years. It was as if they had vanished. Frustrated, Ethan leaned back in his chair, running his hands over his tired face. How could he have been so blind, so focused on his career, that he missed the chance to know his own daughters? His eyes fell on a framed photo on his desk. It was him, years younger, receiving an Entrepreneur of the Year award. Back then, it seemed like the most important thing in the world. Now it felt empty and meaningless. In one swift movement, Ethan flipped the photo face down. He picked up the letter again, rereading every word, trying to imagine the girls. Would they look like him? Would they have Marie's eyes? What did they like? What did they dream about? A fierce determination began to grow inside him. He would find them. No matter how long it took or how much it cost, he would find his daughters. Picking up the phone, Ethan dialed a number he rarely used. "Hello, Jack. It's Ethan. I need your help. It's personal." Jack was an old friend, now a private detective. If anyone could find Marie and the girls, it would be him. After hanging up, Ethan returned to the window. The city was now a sea of lights, each representing a life, a story. Somewhere out there, his daughters were living without knowing he existed. "I will find you," he said aloud, his voice breaking the office's silence. "And I'll fix this." That night, for the first time in years, Ethan Morrison left his office before midnight. As he drove to his luxurious, empty apartment, he found himself imagining what it would be like to hear childish laughter echoing in the hallways. At home, instead of his usual glass of whiskey, Ethan found himself rifling through old boxes, looking for anything he might still have of Marie. He found a single photo taken on that fateful night. Marie smiled at the camera, her eyes shining with a joy he had forgotten existed. Sitting on his leather couch, Ethan pressed the photo to his chest, silent tears rolling down his face. Years of repressed emotion finally found a release. "Forgive me," he whispered into the silence. "Please, let me be part of your lives." The sun rose to find Ethan asleep on the couch, Marie's photo still in his hands and the yellowed letter beside him. A new day was beginning, bringing with it the promise of a search that would change his life forever. As the city woke up outside, Ethan dreamed of 3 little girls with indistinct faces, running toward him with open arms. In his dream, he hugged them, feeling a love he never knew he was capable of. The man who would wake up a few hours later was no longer the same Ethan Morrison the world knew. He was a man on a mission, determined to find and win back the family he never knew he had. The yellowed letter, now carefully tucked into his pocket, would be his constant reminder of what truly mattered in life. And nothing, not his corporate empire or his fortune, would stop him from finding his daughters. The sun had barely risen when Ethan Morrison entered his office, his red-rimmed eyes contrasting with the resolve on his face. In the days since he discovered the letter, his world had turned upside down. "Cancel all my meetings this week," he instructed his startled assistant. "Personal matters, urgent." Sitting at his desk, Ethan opened a newly created folder, Project Family. Inside, Marie's letter and the single photo he had of her. Next to them, a growing list of private investigators, missing persons agencies, and contacts who might help locate Marie and the triplets. As his fingers flew over the keyboard, searching for any clue about Marie's whereabouts, his mind drifted back 8 years. The hotel ballroom buzzed with executives in expensive suits discussing mergers and acquisitions. Ethan, then 42, navigated the crowd with the confidence of a man about to close the deal of his life. That's when he saw her. Maurice, or 28, a young executive from a rival firm. Her smile lit up the ballroom in a way the fancy chandeliers never could. "Miss Dupont, right?" Ethan approached, charm at full tilt. Marie turned, her eyes meeting his. "Mr. Morrison, your reputation precedes you." The evening wore on, champagne glasses emptied, and the distance between them vanished. What began as a business conversation soon turned into something more. "Just this one night," Marie whispered, her lips inches from Ethan's. "No strings, no complications." Ethan nodded, lost in her gaze. "Just this one night," he agreed. The shrill ring of the phone jolted Ethan back to the present. It was Jack, the detective. "Ethan, I have some leads, but they're not good news." Ethan's heart pounded. "Tell me." "Marie, she had an accident 3 years ago. She's in a coma in a rural hospital. As for the girl, there are no records of them after the accident. It's like they vanished." Ethan felt the air leave his lungs. Marie in a coma. The girl's missing. It was worse than he could have imagined. "Send me all the details," he ordered, his voice trembling slightly. "And keep looking. Don't stop until you find them." Hanging up, Ethan walked to the window again. Outside, the city went on with its hectic routine, unaware of the turmoil in his heart. Meanwhile, miles away at Jack's farm, the day began with its usual joyful chaos. "Uncle Jack! Uncle Jack!" Emma shouted, running through the kitchen. "Look what I found in the barn." Jack turned, nearly tipping over a frying pan of eggs. In her hands, Emma held a dirty, mewling kitten. "Oh, sweetie," Jack said with a grin, setting the eggs on the table. "It looks like we have a new family member." Olivia and Ava soon joined their sister, enchanted by the tiny creature. Jack watched, his heart filling with love. It was hard to believe it had been nearly a year since he'd found them under the bridge. Later that day, while the girls played in the yard, Jack received a call that sent a chill down his spine. "Mr. Thompson," the formal voice on the other end. "This is Child Protective Services. We've received a report about 3 young girls living on your property without proper documentation. We need to schedule a visit." Panic rose within Jack. He had known this day might come, but he wasn't prepared. "Of course," he managed, trying to keep his voice steady. "When would you like to come?" After hanging up, Jack sank into a chair in the kitchen. Through the window, he could see the girls laughing and playing. The thought of losing them was unbearable. That night, after tucking the triplets into bed, Jack stayed up late researching adoption laws and guardianship. He would do whatever it took to keep them safe and together. Days turned into weeks. Ethan threw himself into his search with an intensity that surprised even his closest associates. His new routine consisted of long phone calls, meetings with detectives, and sleepless nights poring over any piece of information he could gather. One afternoon, while reviewing some reports, Ethan found an old photo of Marie. In it, she was smiling, holding a trophy from a swimming competition. That detail caught his eye. "I didn't know you swam," Ethan commented, watching Marie emerge from the hotel pool. She smiled, drying her face. "There are a lot of things you don't know about me, Mr. Morrison." Ethan moved closer, handing her a towel. "Maybe I want to find out." Marie looked at him, desire and hesitation mixed in her eyes. "I thought we agreed. Just one night." "What if I want more?" Ethan whispered, his heart racing. Marie touched his face gently. "Sometimes, Ethan, what we want isn't what we need." The memory hit Ethan like a punch. How many chances had he missed? How many times had he chosen his career over real connections? With renewed determination, he picked up the phone. "Jack, I need you to check every swimming competition in recent years. Marie was a swimmer. Maybe the girls..." Back on the farm, the triplets' 6th birthday approached. Jack planned a small celebration, the first they would have since arriving. "Uncle Jack," Ava asked one evening as he tucked them in, "do you think Mommy will find us one day?" Jack's heart clenched. "I don't know, sweetheart, but I do know you'll always have a home here with me." The girls smiled, snuggling into their beds. Jack watched them drift off, a lump in his throat. He knew the challenges were just beginning. Child Protective Services was scheduled to visit the following week, and he still didn't have all the answers. But looking at those peaceful little faces, Jack knew he would do anything to protect them. They were his family now, and he would fight with all his strength to keep them safe and happy. Meanwhile, miles away in his city office, Ethan continued his relentless quest. determined to find the daughters he never knew and the woman he had let slip away. Two men, two different lives, bound by three little girls who had no idea how much they were loved and sought after. Fate had laid out a complex path, and the coming weeks would bring revelations that would change their lives forever. Dawn at Jack's farm was always a show of color and sound. The roosters crowed, mixing with the distant mooing of cows as the sky turned pink and orange. Jack, up for an hour already, was making breakfast for his three little charges. "Emma, Olivia, Ava, breakfast is ready," he called, placing a stack of pancakes on the kitchen table. The sound of bare feet running down the hallway filled the house, and soon the three girls entered the kitchen, their hair messy and sleepy smiles on their faces. "Good morning, Uncle Jack," they chimed in unison, taking their seats at the table. Jack smiled, his heart filling with love as he watched them. It was hard to believe it had been nearly a year since he'd found them under the bridge. Now, they were the center of his world. As the girls devoured the pancakes, Jack watched them with mixed feelings of joy and worry. Today would be their first day at the local elementary school, an important milestone and also a new challenge. "Remember, girls," he said, helping Ava tie her shoes, "if anyone asks about your family, we say you're our uncle and our mum is traveling." Emma, the most assertive, finished for him. Jack nodded, feeling a pang of guilt. He hated asking them to lie, but he knew it was necessary for now. Miles away, in a skyscraper downtown, Ethan Morrison had been in his office for hours already. Maps, reports, and photos covered every available surface. His eyes, shadowed by deep circles, roamed frantically over the information before him. "Mr. Morrison," his assistant interrupted timidly. "Detective Samuels is here to see you." Ethan looked up, a spark of hope lighting his chest. "Send him in immediately." Detective Samuels, a middle-aged man with a face lined by experience, entered. His serious demeanor did not bode well. "Mr. Morrison," he began, "we traced Marie's last known location to a small town a few hours away. But after that, it's as if she and the children vanished." Ethan felt his heart sink. Another dead end, but he would not give up. He couldn't. "Keep searching," he ordered, his voice laced with resolve. "Hire more people if necessary. Double, triple the efforts. I want results." After the detective left, Ethan turned again to the window, looking down at the city below. Somewhere out there, his daughters were living their lives, unaware of his existence. The thought consumed him day and night. Back on the farm, Jack parked his old pickup truck in front of the local elementary school. The triplets, dressed in simple but clean clothes, peered out the window with a mix of excitement and nervousness. "Remember," Jack said, turning to face them, "you are strong, smart, and loved. No matter what happens here, you always have each other and me." The girls nodded, eyes shining with unshed tears. One by one, they hugged Jack before stepping out of the truck. Jack watched them walk toward the school building, hand in hand, backpacks bouncing on their small shoulders. His heart clenched. They looked so small, so vulnerable. All day long, Jack couldn't concentrate on his farm tasks. His thoughts remained with the girls. How were they doing? Would anyone ask difficult questions? When it was finally time to pick them up, Jack was a bundle of nerves. To his relief, the three ran toward him with smiles on their faces. "Uncle Jack," Olivia, the quietest of the three, called out, surprising him with her enthusiasm. "I made a drawing of our family." Jack looked at the paper she held out. 5 smiling figures, the 3 girls, himself, and a woman with a large question mark above her head. "That's Mommy," Ava explained softly, "even if we don't remember her." Jack felt a knot in his throat. "It's beautiful, honey," he managed to say, pulling them into a hug. Meanwhile, Ethan spent yet another sleepless night in his office, poring over photos of Marie and computer-generated images of what the triplets might look like now. Picking up a photo of Marie, Ethan felt a surge of regret overwhelm him. How could he have been so blind, so focused on his career that he missed the chance to know his own daughters? "I will find them," he murmured to himself, a mantra he repeated over and over, "and I will fix everything." At the farm, night fell gently. Jack tucked the girls into bed, listening to every detail of their first day of school. "And the teacher said we're the only triplets she's ever met," Emma concluded, her eyes shining with excitement. Jack smiled, kissing each one on the forehead. "I'm so proud of you, my little ones." After the girls fell asleep, Jack sat on the porch, gazing at the stars. He knew the real challenges were just beginning. Child Protective Services still loomed over them, and questions about the girls' past would only get harder to dodge. But looking at the quiet house behind him, Jack felt a deep certainty. No matter what came their way, he would do everything to keep his family together. Because that's what they were now, a family. Two parallel lives, so different yet connected by three little souls. Jack, fighting to provide stability and love. Ethan, consumed by a desperate search. And in the midst of it all, three little girls, growing, learning, dreaming, unaware of the storm that was forming around them. Fate had plans for all of them, and soon their paths would cross in ways none of them could foresee. The phone rang in Ethan's office, breaking the silence of the night. His heart raced. Late-night calls rarely brought good news. "Mr. Morrison," Detective Samuels sounded urgent. "We've found Marie." Ethan felt the air leave his lungs. "Where? Is she okay?" "What about the girls?" "Sir," Samuels hesitated. "She's in a coma at St. Mary's Hospital, about 100 miles away. She's been there almost 3 years." Ethan's world seemed to collapse. Marie, in a coma, 3 years lost. "And the girls?" "And my daughters," he whispered, barely audible. "No information on them yet, sir." "We'll keep looking." Hanging up, Ethan slumped into his chair, his mind a whirlwind of emotions. Marie, the one he'd let go, was now fighting for her life in a hospital bed, and his daughters, still missing. Without a second thought, he grabbed his coat and ran out of the office. St. Mary's Hospital awaited him, and maybe some answers. Back at the farm, Jack watched the triplets play in the yard. Something was different. In recent weeks, he'd noticed subtle changes in their behavior. Emma, always the leader, now had moments of deep introspection. Olivia, the quiet one, sometimes woke up screaming in the middle of the night. And Ava, the artist of the trio, was drawing scenes Jack didn't recognize. A woman with long hair, a red car, a dark road. "Uncle Jack?" Emma's voice pulled him from his thoughts. "Why can't we remember our mom?" The question caught Jack by surprise. He knelt down, meeting the girl's eyes. "Sometimes," he began carefully, "our mind hides memories that are too painful to protect us." Emma nodded, her eyes reflecting an understanding beyond her years. "But what if we want to remember?" Jack felt his heart tighten. "Then maybe, in time, those memories will return." That night, as he tucked the girls in, Jack noticed something new. A small teddy bear, worn and missing one eye, in Ava's arms. "Where did that teddy bear come from, sweetheart?" Ava looked at the toy, confused. I don't know. It's always been with me, hasn't it?" Jack swallowed hard. The teddy bear hadn't been there the day he found the girls. Where had it come from? At St. Mary's Hospital. Ethan stood at the door to Marie's room, his heart pounding. Taking a deep breath, he entered. The constant beep of monitors filled his ears. On the bed lay a pale, fragile figure, so different from the vibrant Marie he remembered. Approaching, Ethan gently took her hand. "Marie," he whispered, voice thick with emotion, "I'm sorry. I'm sorry for everything." Tears he had held back for so long finally fell. Years of regret, guilt, and unanswered questions overwhelmed him. A faint squeeze of his hand made him freeze. Marie's eyelids fluttered, but did not open. "Doctor!" Ethan shouted, his heart pounding. "She moved!" Doctors rushed in, examining Marie. "This is a good sign," said one, "but it doesn't necessarily mean she'll fully wake up soon." Ethan nodded, torn between hope and fear. Sitting by the bed, he began to talk to her, telling Marie about his search, about the daughters he'd never met, about the regret he carried. Back on the farm, Jack sat on his porch, Ava's teddy bear in his hands. The decision he faced tore him apart inside. Investigating further might mean risking losing the girls, but not investigating. Was he denying them the chance to know their true past? Closing his eyes, Jack allowed himself to imagine what might have happened to Marie and the girls. It was a stormy night. Marie was driving down a winding road, the triplets asleep in the back seat. She was exhausted, physically and emotionally. The past years, raising them alone, had been a constant struggle. Headlights flashed. A car coming from the opposite lane swerved into hers. Marie yanked the wheel, trying to avoid the collision. The world spun, the sound of screeching metal, screams. When it stopped, Marie was pinned in the car. The girls were crying in the back seat. "Get out of the car," she yelled, feeling herself fading. "Run into the woods, hide." Scared and confused, the girls obeyed. The last thing Marie saw before blacking out was her 3 daughters disappearing into the darkness. Jack opened his eyes, his heart heavy. It was only his imagination, but something told him he was close to the truth. Staring at the quiet house where the triplets slept, Jack made his decision. He would investigate, but carefully. The girls deserved to know the truth about their past, but he would do everything to keep them safe and together. Picking up his phone, Jack hesitated a moment before dialing. "Hello? I'd like to speak to someone about a possible missing children's case from 3 years ago." As the voice on the other end responded, Jack looked up at the stars, praying he was doing the right thing. The future was uncertain, but one thing he knew: he would do anything to protect his girls. Ethan Morrison's office buzzed with frenetic energy. Maps, reports, and photographs covered every surface. In the center of it all, Ethan and his team of detectives worked tirelessly. "Sir," called one of the detectives, excitement in his voice, "we've found something." Ethan rushed over, heart pounding. "What is it?" The detective pointed to a map. There were reports of 3 little girls seen at a rural fair in this area, about 6 months after their disappearance. "The descriptions match your daughters." Hope surged through Ethan. Finally, a concrete lead. "I want everyone focused on this area," he ordered, eyes glued to the map. "Check every farm, every small town, every school. They're there, I can feel it." As the team mobilized, Ethan allowed himself a moment of vulnerability. Looking at Marie's photo on his desk, he whispered, "I'm on my way, my girls. Daddy's coming." At Jack's farm, the day dawned with a heavy atmosphere. After nights of reflection, he knew it was time to have a difficult conversation with the triplets. "Emma, Olivia, Ava," he called gently, gathering the girls in the living room. "We need to talk about something important." The 3 sat down, their big, curious eyes on Jack. He took a deep breath, summoning courage. "Do you remember the day we met, under the bridge?" The girls nodded, exchanging uncertain looks. "Well," Jack continued, "I think it's time we try to understand a bit more about what happened before that day." Emma, always assertive, leaned forward. "Do you know something about our mum?" Jack shook his head. "Not much, honey, but I have some theories. And I think you might have some memories too, right?" Ava clutched her teddy bear tightly. "Sometimes I dream about a woman with long hair. She's driving a red car." Olivia, usually so quiet, surprised them by speaking up. "I remember noise, a lot of noise, then darkness and trees." Jack's heart twisted. These fragments confirmed his suspicions. "I think," he said softly, "that you and your mom may have had a car accident. And for some reason, you got separated from her in the woods." Silence fell, deafening in the living room. The girls processed the information, their expressions a mixture of shock, sadness, and, surprisingly, relief. Emma was the first to speak, her voice trembling slightly. "So, we weren't abandoned?" Jack pulled them into a tight embrace. "No, my loves. I'm sure your mom loved you very much, and still does, wherever she is." Tears flowed, not just from the girls, but from Jack as well. It was a moment of catharsis, of reconnecting with a past that had felt lost for so long. When they finally calmed down, Ava looked at Jack with wide eyes. "Uncle Jack, will you help us find our mum?" Jack felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. "I'll do my best, sweetheart, but I want you to know this is your home too, no matter what happens." The girls hugged him again, and Jack felt a mix of love and determination. He would do everything in his power to help them discover the truth, but also protect them from any pain that search might bring. Back in the city, Ethan was in his bedroom, packing his bags. After weeks of fruitless leads, he decided it was time to take matters into his own hands. Picking up a photo of Marie, he placed it carefully in his suitcase. Next to it, he placed 3 small gifts: a doll, a storybook, and a set of colored pencils, presents for the daughters he hoped to find soon. His phone rang. It was the head detective. "Mr. Morrison, we have a new lead. A local farmer reported finding 3 little girls about a year ago. They've been living with him ever since." Ethan's heart leapt. "Where?" "A farm about 200 miles from here. The farmer's name is Jack Thompson." Ethan could barely contain his excitement. "Get the helicopter ready. We leave at dawn." Hanging up, Ethan sat on the edge of the bed, a swirl of hope and fear rising inside him. After all this time, he was so close, but what if the girls didn't want him in their lives? What if he was too late? Glancing out the window at the city that had been his only focus for so long, Ethan made a silent promise. No matter what happened, he would do what was best for his daughters, even if that meant leaving them with the man who had raised them for the past year. With a deep sigh, Ethan closed his suitcase. Dawn would bring a new chapter in his life, one he hoped would be about redemption and love. As night stretched on, 2 men in different places prepared for a meeting that would change their lives forever. Jack, determined to protect the girls who had become his family. Ethan, eager to meet the daughters he never knew he had. And in the middle, 3 little girls slept, unaware of the whirlwind about to descend on their lives, dreaming of a mother with long hair and a future full of possibilities. The sun had barely risen when Jack stepped outside to begin his daily chores. The morning air carried the familiar scent of damp earth and freshly cut grass. The chickens were already clucking in the coop, eager for breakfast. Inside the house, the triplets were still asleep. After the emotional conversation the day before, Jack decided to let them rest a bit longer. They deserved a moment of peace before facing the uncertainties the future would surely bring. Jack was in the barn feeding the animals when he first heard it, a distant hum almost imperceptible at first, but rapidly growing louder. Frowning, Jack walked out of the barn, scanning the sky for the source of the noise. That's when he saw it. A dark speck on the horizon, approaching fast. His heart pounded. A helicopter. In all his years on the farm, he had never seen one approach like this. Something was off. The roaring grew, echoing across the fields and startling the animals. Cows bellowed nervously, horses whinnied in the pasture. "Uncle Jack!" Emma's frightened voice reached his ears. The 3 girls ran toward him, still in pajamas, wide-eyed with fear. Jack pulled them into a protective hug, his eyes never leaving the helicopter, which now circled the field searching for a landing spot. "It's all right, sweethearts," he tried to reassure them, though his own heart was racing. "We'll stick together." The wind churned up by the rotor blades lashed the field, creating waves in the tall grass. Jack watched in shock as the helicopter touched down gently in his wheat field, crushing the crop beneath its skids. When the rotors finally stopped, a tense silence fell over the farm. The helicopter door opened and a man stepped out. Tall, well-dressed, with an air of determination on his face. Jack felt the girls pressing closer to him. Who was this stranger? What did he want? The man walked toward them, his eyes fixed on the triplets. There was an expression Jack couldn't quite read. Hope, fear, and love. "Jack Thompson," the stranger called, stopping a few yards away. Jack nodded warily. "Who wants to know?" "My name is Ethan Morrison," the man replied, his voice trembling slightly. "And I believe these are my daughters." The world seemed to freeze. Jack felt as if the air had been sucked from his lungs. The girls, confused, looked from Jack to Ethan, not understanding what was happening. "What are you talking about?" Jack finally managed, his voice harsher than intended. Ethan took a step forward, his gaze never leaving the girls. 8 years ago, I made a terrible mistake. I let the woman I loved go, not knowing she was pregnant. With triplets. Emma, always the bravest, took a step toward Ethan. You're our dad." The question, so innocent yet so loaded, hung in the air. Tears filled Ethan's eyes. "Yes," he answered softly. "Yes, I am." What followed was chaos, a swirl of conflicting emotions. Olivia began to cry silently, while Ava clung to Jack as though her life depended on it. Emma, on the other hand, inched closer to Ethan, curiosity trumping her fear. Jack, feeling control of the situation slipping away, stepped in. "Girls, why don't you go inside and have some breakfast? Mr. Morrison and I need to talk." The triplets hesitated, clearly reluctant to leave the scene, but years of trust in Jack prevailed, and they slowly headed to the house, casting curious glances at Ethan. Once they were out of earshot, Jack turned to Ethan, his eyes cold. "Do you have any idea what you've just done? The trauma you could have caused them." Ethan seemed to shrink under Jack's accusatory gaze. I just wanted to find them, to know them." "And you thought dropping in by helicopter, unannounced, was the best way to do that?" Jack took a deep breath, trying to control his anger. "Those girls have been through more than you can imagine. They were finally feeling safe, and now—" "I'm sorry," Ethan interrupted, regret filling his voice. "I didn't think... I've spent so long searching for them." Jack studied the man before him. Despite his initial anger, he could see the pain and remorse in Ethan's eyes. This was a man who had made mistakes, but who was desperate to make things right. "Look," Jack said at last, his voice quieter. "What's done is done. But from now on, we have to think about what's best for the girls. They're the priority here." Ethan nodded earnestly. "I couldn't agree more. I didn't come here to take them away from you, Jack. I just want to be part of their lives if they'll have me." The two men stared at each other for a long moment, a silent understanding passing between them. Both loved those girls, albeit in different ways. "Let's go inside," Jack finally said. "We have a lot to discuss, and the girls deserve an explanation." As they walked toward the house, Jack couldn't help but notice how Ethan looked at everything around him with a mix of curiosity and wonder. This was the world his daughters had lived in for the past year, so different from Ethan's urban reality. On the porch, they paused. Through the kitchen window, they could see the triplets sitting at the table, chatting animatedly, their eyes occasionally darting to the door, waiting. "They're amazing," Ethan whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Jack nodded. "Yes, they are. And Ethan. Whatever happens from now on, remember, they're what matters most. Their feelings, their needs, come first." Sharing one last look, the two men stepped inside, ready for the conversation that would change the course of their lives forever. The farmhouse kitchen, usually a place of laughter and lively chatter, was steeped in tense silence. Jack, Ethan, and the triplets sat around the table, untouched cups of tea in front of them. The ticking of the wall clock seemed deafening in the oppressive quiet. Ethan cleared his throat, breaking the silence. His hands trembled slightly as he took a yellowed envelope from his suit pocket. "About a month ago," he began, his voice rough with emotion, "I found this letter. It was hidden in an old drawer in my office." He opened the envelope carefully, as though it were a precious treasure. The girls leaned forward, curious, while Jack watched with a blend of apprehension and protectiveness. "It was written by your mother, Marie," Ethan continued, looking directly at the triplets. She was telling me about her pregnancy. About you." Emma, always the boldest, asked, "Why did she write a letter? Why didn't she tell you in person?" The innocent question hit Ethan like a punch to the gut. He closed his eyes for a moment, gathering courage. "Because I made a terrible mistake," he admitted, voice tight. "I let your mother go. I was so focused on my career that I didn't see what really mattered." Jack felt a twinge of sympathy despite his lingering irritation. He knew all too well the weight of regret. Ethan went on with his story, detailing his frantic search after discovering the letter, his sleepless nights, the detectives he hired, the hopes and disappointments that alternated with each new lead. As Ethan spoke, the triplets listened intently, their expressions a mix of confusion, curiosity, and at times, sadness. "I never knew about you," Ethan concluded, tears in his eyes. "If I had known—" "But you didn't," Jack interjected, his voice firm but not unkind. "And while you were building your empire, I was here, taking care of them, loving them, being the dad they needed." Jack's words hung in the air, laden with emotion. Ethan nodded slowly, acknowledging the truth in what the other man said. "You're right," Ethan admitted, "and I'm eternally grateful. But now that I know, I can't just go back to my life and pretend I don't have 3 wonderful daughters." The girls, who had remained silent until then, began to fidget. Olivia, usually the quietest, surprised everyone by speaking. I remember something," she said softly. "A red car, and music. Mommy singing." Ava nodded eagerly. "Yes, and the smell of lavender. Mommy always smelled like lavender." The fragmented memories seemed to spark something in the girls. They started talking all at once, sharing little details that had been buried in their minds. Ethan and Jack watched, both amazed and somewhat frightened, as the triplets pieced together bits of their past. "But what about the accident?" Emma asked suddenly, silencing her sisters. "Uncle Jack said he thought we were in a car crash." Silence fell again. Ethan looked at Jack, confused and slightly accusatory. "Accident? What is she talking about?" Jack sighed heavily. "Based on the little the girls remembered and some research I did, I believe Marie and the girls were in a car accident about 3 years ago. That's why I found them alone, lost." The revelation struck Ethan like lightning. 3 years. Marie's been in a coma for 3 years in a hospital. It must have been that accident. The triplets gasped in unison. "Mommy's alive?" Ava asked, her eyes wide. The tension in the room was palpable. Jack rose abruptly, walking to the window. He felt torn between the joy of knowing the girl's mother was alive and the fear of losing them. "Yes," Ethan answered softly. "She's in a coma, but she's alive, and now that I've found you, we can visit her together." Jack turned back quickly. "Wait a minute. We can't just uproot the girls from their routine, from their home." "This isn't their home, Jack," Ethan retorted, his voice rising slightly. "They have a family, a life that was interrupted." The girls watched the exchange between the two men, eyes darting back and forth like they were at a tennis match. "They also have a life here," Jack argued. "Friends, school, memories. You can't just show up and change everything." The argument escalated, both voices rising. The triplets shrank in their chairs, frightened by the conflict. Emma finally interrupted. "Stop!" she shouted, startling everyone. "Stop fighting!" Silence filled the kitchen once more. Emma, tears in her eyes, continued, "We love Uncle Jack. He saved us, took care of us, but..." She looked at Ethan. "We also want to know our dad and our mom. Can't we have both?" Her question, so innocent yet profoundly wise, left the two men speechless. They stared at each other, finally recognizing the complexity of the situation. Jack spoke first, and his voice calmer. "You're right, sweetheart. We'll figure out a way." "Together," Ethan nodded. "Yes, we will. Because what matters here is you girls, your needs, your feelings." The triplets offered timid smiles, some of the tension leaving their small shoulders. The situation was far from resolved, but in that moment, in the sunny farmhouse kitchen, a first step was taken toward an uncertain future, yet filled with possibilities, where two very different fathers could coexist for the sake of 3 extraordinary little girls. The afternoon sun bathed the farmhouse porch, where Jack and Ethan sat in rocking chairs, a tense silence hanging between them. Inside, the soft voices of the social workers mingled with the hesitant answers of the triplets. The arrival of the local authorities had been inevitable. After Ethan's bombshell revelation, Jack knew they needed professional guidance to navigate this complex situation, but that didn't make the process any less painful. "They look happy here," Ethan murmured, finally breaking the silence. His eyes drifted across the yard, where colorful toys stood out against the green grass. Jack nodded slowly. "It's been challenging, but rewarding. They brought life back into this place." Before Ethan could reply, the front door opened. 2 social workers, Mrs. Martinez and Mrs. Thompson, stepped out, their expressions serious. "Gentlemen," Mrs. Martinez began, "we've spoken with the girls. It's a unique situation, to say the least." Jack and Ethan rose, tension crackling in the air. "What did they say?" Ethan asked anxiously. Mrs. Thompson sighed. "They're scared, confused, But above all, they're afraid of being separated again. Jack's heart twisted. He knew how much the girls had suffered, the trauma of being separated from their mother still fresh in their subconscious memories. "We can't let that happen," Jack said firmly. "They've already been through enough." Ethan, to everyone's surprise, including his own, agreed. Jack's right. Regardless of other considerations, keeping the girls together has to be our priority. The social workers exchanged meaningful looks. "It's good to see you two can agree on something," Mrs. Martinez noted. "Because the legal situation here is complicated, to say the least." She paused, collecting her thoughts before continuing. "Mr. Morrison, biologically, you're their father, but there's no official record of paternity. Mr. Thompson, you've been their de facto guardian for almost a year, providing a stable and loving home." Mrs. Thompson spoke up. "Usually, in cases of newly discovered paternity, there would be a transition period, but given these unique circumstances, the girls' trauma, their adaptation here, and the fact that their mother is unavailable at the moment, we need to think creatively." Jack and Ethan exchanged glances, the gravity of the situation weighing on them. "What do you suggest?" Ethan asked, his voice thick with emotion. Mrs. Martinez took a deep breath. "Our initial recommendation is to keep the girls here on the farm with Mr. Thompson." Relief flooded Jack, while Ethan looked as though he'd been punched. "But," the social worker continued quickly, "with regular structured visits from Mr. Morrison, the idea is to allow the girls to develop a relationship with their biological father without completely uprooting the stability they've found here." A heavy silence followed. Jack and Ethan both processed the proposal, wrestling with their own desires and emotions. Ethan spoke first, voice trembling. I understand the logic, but it's hard. I've just found them and you want to be an integral part of their lives?" Jack finished gently, surprising everyone with his empathy. "I understand, Ethan. Truly." The two men locked eyes, a silent moment of understanding passing between them. They both loved these girls, each in his own way. Can we talk to them?" Jack asked the social workers. "Explain the situation. See how they feel." The women nodded, and soon the triplets were called out to the porch. They appeared at the door, hand in hand. "Dear and sweet," Jack calls, ran to his. Ethan watched, a mixture of love and envy in his heart. "Emma, Olivia, Ava," Jack began in a gentle tone, "we've been talking about what happens now, about Ethan, your biological father, being part of our lives." The girls glanced from Jack to Ethan, their expressions a blend of curiosity and apprehension. Ethan knelt down, meeting their eyes. "I know this is confusing and scary, and I want you to know that, no matter what happens, the most important thing to me is that you're happy and safe." Emma, the ever-outspoken, said, "We don't want to leave. The farm is our home now." Olivia nodded vigorously. "And Uncle Jack is our family." Ava, the quiet one, surprised everyone by addressing Ethan directly. "But we want to know you too. You're our dad, right?" Tears welled up in Ethan's eyes. "Yes, sweetheart. I am." Jack, swallowing the lump in his throat, explained gently, "What we're thinking is that you can keep living here with me. But Ethan, your dad, will come visit regularly. That way you can get to know him better and build a relationship with him too." The girls processed this, exchanging glances as only triplets can. "What about Mommy?" Ava asked softly. The question caught everyone off guard. Ethan and Jack exchanged a quick look before Ethan answered, "Your mom? She's sick right now. But as soon as it's possible, we'll visit her together, I promise." The triplets nodded, seeming satisfied for the moment. "So," Emma concluded, her voice surprisingly mature, "we'll stay here, but we'll have two dads." Jack and Ethan exchanged glances, tentative smiles forming on their faces. "Yes, sweetie," Jack replied. "If that's okay with you?" The girls smiled, the tension visibly easing from their small bodies. They turned to Ethan, still a bit shy, but with a new hint of acceptance in their eyes. "Will you visit us a lot?" Olivia asked. Ethan nodded emphatically. "Whenever you want." And when I can't come, we can talk on the phone or video call." The social workers looked on, clearly approving of the unfolding scene. "It looks like we have an initial plan," Mrs. Martinez said. "We'll formalize the details and schedule regular follow-up visits to ensure everyone is doing well." As the social workers prepared to leave, Jack and Ethan found themselves alone for a moment. "Thank you," Ethan said softly, "for being so understanding. I know I didn't make things easy showing up like that." Jack shrugged, a small smile tugging at his lips. "They deserve to have both of us in their lives, and who knows, maybe this farm could use a city touch from time to time." The two men laughed, the tension between them visibly fading. They knew the road ahead would be challenging, full of adjustments and compromises. But looking at the triplets, now happily playing in the yard, both Jack and Ethan felt a certainty. For those three extraordinary girls, they would make it work. The sun began to set on the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. A new phase was beginning for this unconventional family, one filled with hope, love, and endless possibilities. Morning broke bright and promising on Jack's farm. The air was thick with anticipation, as it was the day of Ethan's first official visit. The triplets, Emma, Olivia, and Ava, rushed around the house, tidying their rooms and carefully choosing their outfits. Jack watched them with a mixture of emotions. Joy at seeing the girls' excitement, apprehension about how the visit might affect their carefully built dynamic, and a stab of fear of losing the family he had so unexpectedly found. At exactly 10 a.m., the sound of tires on the dirt road announced Ethan's arrival. The girls ran to the porch, eyes bright with anticipation. Ethan stepped out of the car, carrying 3 colorful packages. His face lit up at the sight of his daughters, and for a moment, all the tension and complexity of the situation seemed to disappear. "Hello, girls," he said softly, approaching. "I brought you some gifts." The triplets glanced at Jack, silently seeking permission. With a gentle nod, he encouraged them to approach Ethan. Emma, true to form, took the lead. "Thank you, Dad," she said, testing the word. Ethan's face shone at the sound, and he handed them the presents with trembling hands. Olivia received a set of books, Ava a painting kit, and Emma a portable telescope. "I thought we could look at the stars together," Ethan explained to Emma. "The sky must be amazing out here on the farm." The girls hugged their gifts, initial reservations starting to melt away. Jack stood by, heart constricting. It hurt, but it was also beautiful to see them bonding with their biological father. The morning passed in a blur of activity. Ethan was given a tour of the farm, listening intently as the girls excitedly explained about the animals, the crops, and their favorite hiding spots. Over lunch, which Jack cooked, the conversation flowed more easily. Ethan shared childhood stories, and the girls, encouraged by his openness, began asking questions about Marie. "What was Mommy like?" Ava asked shyly. Ethan paused, emotion filling his eyes. "She is amazing, so full of life, always smiling. She loved to sing, you know?" The triplets exchanged excited glances. "We remember a little of that," Emma exclaimed. "Mommy singing in the car." The conversation continued, sprinkled with laughter and tears, as memories were shared and new connections formed. Mid-afternoon, they were all in the living room when Ethan's phone rang. He glanced at the number, frowning. "Excuse me, I need to take this," he said, stepping onto the porch. Jack and the girls continued talking, but everyone sensed a shift in the air. Something was happening. Moments later, Ethan returned, pale-faced and shaking hands. "What happened?" Jack asked, immediately concerned. Ethan looked at the girls, then at Jack, eyes wide with shock. "Marie, she woke up. Marie woke up from her coma." A stunned silence followed. The triplets froze, their young minds struggling to process the news. Jack felt as if the ground had fallen away beneath him. "Mommy is awake," Olivia whispered, breaking the silence. The reality of the situation hit everyone like a wave. Tears started to flow, mingled with disbelieving laughter. The girls clung to each other, their emotions a chaotic mix of joy, fear, and confusion. Ethan dropped to his knees, openly sobbing. "She's alive, she's awake," he kept repeating, as if he couldn't believe it. Jack, wrestling with his own tumultuous feelings, stepped up to be the anchor. He knelt beside Ethan, placing a hand on his shoulder. "That's amazing news, Ethan," he said gently. "Marie is back." Ethan looked at Jack, eyes filled with gratitude and guilt. I have to go see her. Right away." "But the girl—" "Go," Jack said firmly. "The girls will be all right here with me. Go see Marie, explain everything to her. When the time is right, we'll bring the girls to visit." Ethan nodded, thankful for Jack's understanding. He turned to the triplets, who watched him with wide, anxious eyes. "Girls," he began, voice unsteady, "I have to go see your mum now. Tell her everything that happened. Prepare her to meet you again. Do you understand?" They nodded slowly, still processing it all. When can we see her?" Emma asked, her voice trembling. "As soon as it's safe," Ethan promised. "I'll call every day with updates, okay?" After tearful hugs and repeated promises to stay in touch, Ethan left, leaving a whirlwind of emotions in his wake. Jack gathered the girls in the living room, knowing they needed stability now more than ever. "I know this is a lot to take in," he said gently. "I'm here for you, whatever you need. We can talk, cry, shout, anything you want." The triplets snuggled up to Jack, seeking the familiar comfort of his embrace. "What if she doesn't like us?" Ava whispered, voicing the fear they all shared. "Oh, honey," Jack replied, hugging her tighter. "Your mum is going to love you." "I'm sure she never stopped loving you, not even for a second." The hours that followed were an emotional roller coaster. The girls swung between bursts of excitement and deep anxiety. Jack guided them through each emotion, offering comfort, honest answers, and, most importantly, unconditional love. That evening, after tucking the girls into bed, Jack sat on the porch, exhausted. His world had been flipped upside down yet again. Part of him feared what Marie's awakening would mean for his little family. Another part rejoiced, truly happy that the girls might have their mother back. The phone rang, pulling him from his thoughts. It was Ethan. "Jack," Ethan's voice was emotional. "I'm at the hospital. Marie, she's conscious, confused, but she's here." "How is she?" Jack asked softly. "Weak, but the doctors say she's making an incredible recovery, all things considered. I told her about the girls." "About you?" Jack closed his eyes, picturing the scene. "How did she react?" "She cried. A lot. But Jack, the first thing she asked was about the girls, whether they were safe, cared for." A knot formed in Jack's throat. "What did you tell her?" "The truth," Ethan said. "That thanks to you, they're more than okay. That you saved them, loved them, protected them when neither of us could." Silence lingered between them, thick with unspoken emotion. "Jack," Ethan continued, tone serious, "I know this complicates everything, but I want you to know, Marie and I talked. You're part of this family now. The girls need you as much as they need us." The words hit Jack hard. Tears he had suppressed all day finally escaped. "Thank you, Ethan," he managed. That means a lot." After hanging up, Jack remained on the porch a while longer, gazing at the stars. The future was uncertain, full of challenges and upheaval, but one thing was clear: love, in all its complicated and unexpected forms, would guide them forward. With a deep sigh, Jack stepped back inside, ready to face whatever tomorrow might bring. Because now, more than ever, those 3 little girls would need all the stability and love he could offer. Ethan's heart hammered in his chest as he walked down the sterile corridors of the hospital. Each step brought him closer to Marie, to a past he had neglected, and to an uncertain future. He stopped outside room 302, took a deep breath, and walked in. Marie was sitting up in bed, pale but alert. Her eyes, the same ones that had haunted Ethan's dreams for years, locked onto his. Time seemed to stand still. "Ethan," she whispered, her voice raspy from disuse. "Marie," he responded, tears already forming in his eyes. He approached slowly, as though afraid she would vanish if he moved too quickly. He sat in the chair beside the bed, his hands trembling as he reached for hers. "I'm so sorry," was all he could say. "I'm sorry for everything." Marie squeezed his hand gently, her own eyes brimming with tears. "Ethan, Before she could continue, Ethan was flooded with memories. Flashback. Ethan and Marie laughing, running along a beach at sunset. It was their third date, and Ethan had never felt so alive. "You're amazing," he told her, pulling her close. Marie smiled, her eyes sparkling. "And you're full of surprises, Mr. Businessman." They kissed, the crash of the waves a soundtrack to their world. Months later, in his luxurious apartment, the atmosphere was tense. "Another cancelled dinner, Ethan?" Marie asked, hurt in her voice. "Marie, you know how important this deal is. It could change everything for us," Ethan said, already grabbing his briefcase. "For us or for you?" Marie countered, but Ethan was already out the door. End of flashback. Back in the present. Ethan felt the weight of his mistakes as never before. "I was a fool, Marie," he began, voice choked with emotion. "I put my career, my ambition above everything, above you, above our family. When I found your letter, God, Marie, it was like my world collapsed." Marie watched him, tears rolling down her cheeks. "I wanted to tell you in person," she said softly, "but you were always so busy, so distant. And then I found out it was triplets. I was scared, Ethan. Afraid you'd reject us, afraid you'd see the babies as an obstacle to your plans." Each word was like a dagger to Ethan's heart. "I would have loved you, Marie, I would have—" "Would you?" she gently interrupted. "Ethan, back then, you barely had time for dinner with me. How could you have had time for 3 babies? The truth of her words hit him hard. Ethan lowered his head, silent sobs shaking his shoulders. "You're right," he admitted. "I wasn't ready. I wasn't the man you deserved. But Marie, I've changed. These past months, searching for you, I realized what really matters." Marie reached out, touching Ethan's face gently. "Tell me about them," she asked. "Our daughters." Ethan smiled through his tears. "They're incredible, Marie. Emma is a natural leader, always looking out for her sisters. Olivia is the thoughtful one, always with her nose in a book. And Ava, oh, she has your creativity. She's constantly drawing." Marie closed her eyes, absorbing every word. When she opened them again, they were filled with determination. "Ethan, we need to focus on the future now. For them." Ethan nodded vigorously. "Yes, for them. Marie, I promise I'll do whatever it takes to be the father they deserve." "What about Jack?" Marie asked softly. "You said he's been taking care of them." Ethan hesitated a moment, then smiled. "Jack is amazing. He saved our daughters, Marie, gave them a home, love, stability. He's as much a father to them as I am." Marie smiled, relief evident. "Then we owe him a great debt." In the days that followed, Ethan and Marie spent hours talking, planning, and most importantly, reconnecting. They knew the road ahead would be difficult, but they were determined to face it together. Finally, the day everyone had been waiting for arrived. The triplets, accompanied by Jack, arrived at the hospital to see their mother for the first time in years. Marie's hospital room was quiet, tension thick in the air. She sat upright in bed, heart pounding as she waited. Ethan stood beside her, holding her hand in silent support. The door opened slowly. Jack came in first, offering a reassuring smile. "It's okay, girls," he said softly, turning back. One by one, Emma, Olivia, and Ava entered the room. Their eyes, wide and full of emotion, immediately locked on Marie. For a moment, no one moved. Time seemed to stop. Then, with a choked sob, Marie held out her arms. "My babies," she whispered. As though a dam had burst, the triplets rushed to the bed. In seconds, they were in Marie's arms, tears flowing freely. "Mommy!" they cried in unison, little hands clutching at her as if afraid she'd vanish again. Marie hugged them tightly, kissing their faces. "My precious girls," she murmured through tears. "Mommy's here now. Mommy will never leave you again." Ethan watched, his own face wet with tears. He looked over at Jack, who stood near the door, equally emotional. With a silent invitation, Ethan beckoned Jack over. Hesitant, Jack approached. "Jack," Marie said, gazing at him with grateful eyes. "Thank you. Thank you for caring for our daughters." Jack smiled, moved. "They're extraordinary," he said simply. "They brought so much joy into my life." The triplets, still clinging to Marie, reached out their hands for both Jack and Ethan. "Come on," Emma said. "We're all a family now, aren't we?" In that moment, in that hospital room, a new family was born. Unconventional, certainly complicated, but bound together by unconditional love for three extraordinary little girls. Marie looked around, at her daughters, at Ethan, at Jack, and for the first time in years, felt truly at home. "Yes," she said, smiling through tears. "We are a family. All of us." And so they remained, arms wrapped around each other, the past forgiven, the present cherished, and the future brimming with promise and possibility. Summer was in full swing when Marie was finally discharged from the hospital. Ethan's car made its way along a winding country road toward Jack's farm. In the back seat, the triplets could hardly contain their excitement, chattering non-stop about all the places they wanted to show their mother. When the car stopped in front of the farmhouse, Jack was waiting on the porch with a warm smile. "Welcome to your temporary new home, Marie," he said, helping her out of the car. Marie took in the rustic beauty around her. "It's lovely, Jack. Thank you for having us." The first days were a mix of joy and adjustment. Still recovering, Marie spent most of her time on the porch, watching her daughters play in the yard. Ethan split his time between work calls and precious moments with his newly united family. Jack continued running the farm with three enthusiastic helpers trailing behind him. One evening, after the girls were asleep, the three adults gathered in the kitchen. "This is going better than I expected," Ethan remarked, a tired but content smile on his face. Marie nodded, eyes shining. "The girls seem so happy. It's as though we've always been a family." Jack, and preparing tea, paused. "What happens when Marie is fully recovered? Will you both go back to the city?" A contemplative silence fell over the kitchen. It was Ethan who broke it with an unexpected proposal. "What if we expand the farm?" he suggested, looking from Jack to Marie. "We could build 2 more houses on the property, one for me, one for Marie and the girls, so we're all close, but with our own space." Jack and Marie exchanged surprised looks. "You'd do that?" Jack asked in disbelief. "Leave the city? Your job?" Ethan smiled, determination shining in his eyes. "For my family? Yes, I would. I've already wasted enough time focusing on the wrong things. Besides," he added with a mischievous grin, "I've always wanted to learn about farming." Marie laughed, taking both men's hands. "It sounds perfect. The girls would have the best of both worlds, stability here on the farm and closeness to all of us." And so, in the months that followed, Jack's farm transformed. The sound of hammers and saws mingled with the triplets' laughter and the lowing of cows. 2 new houses rose in the distance, each reflecting the personalities of its future occupants. The triplets thrived with the constant love and attention. Emma discovered a passion for horseback riding, spending hours in the stables with Jack. Olivia claimed a corner of the porch as her personal library, often reading aloud to Marie. Ava found in Ethan a partner for her artistic adventures, painting beautiful landscapes of the farm together. As time passed, Jack, Ethan, and Marie found balance in their unique arrangement. Family meals became sacred rituals, with everyone taking turns cooking. Evenings were filled with board games, shared stories, and dreams for the future. At last came the grand day, the celebration of the expanded farm, and, more importantly, the new family they had built. The sun shone brightly, as if blessing the occasion. The yard was adorned with colorful ribbons and balloons. A large table sat under an ancient oak tree, laden with dishes lovingly prepared by all. The triplets ran across the field, their laughter echoing through the property. Emma led an impromptu treasure hunt. Olivia read excerpts from her favorite book to a group of neighboring children, and Ava proudly displayed her latest drawings. Jack and Ethan stood side by side, grilling burgers and exchanging jokes like old friends. Anyone who saw them now would never have guessed the turbulent start to their relationship. "You know," Jack remarked, flipping a burger, "I never thought I'd say this, but I'm glad you landed that helicopter in my wheat field." Ethan chuckled, patting Jack on the back. "And I never thought I'd be so happy trading my suits for overalls." Marie watched the scene from the porch, her heart overflowing with gratitude. Seeing her daughters so joyful, and the two men who meant so much to her working in harmony, she felt tears of happiness gather in her eyes. Approaching her, Ethan handed her a glass of lemonade. "What are you thinking?" he asked gently. Marie smiled, wiping away a tear. "About second chances, and how forgiveness can open doors we thought were closed forever." Ethan nodded, his expression serious. "Marie, I know I've said it before, but I want you to know, I'm sorry for everything. For not being there when you needed me most, for missing so many precious moments with our daughters." Marie cupped his face gently. "Ethan, the past is the past. What matters is now, and the future we're building together. All of us." Just then, Jack joined them, carrying a plate of burgers. "Hey, you two, enough serious talk. Today is a celebration." They all laughed, the happiness of the moment pushing away any lingering shadows. As the afternoon wore on, everyone gathered around the big table. Jack proposed a toast. "To family," he began, raising his glass. "Not just the one we're born into, but the one we choose. To the strength we find in each other, and the love that binds us." "To family," everyone echoed, glasses clinking beneath the setting sun. Later, as the sun dipped below the horizon in a blaze of orange and pink, the family took a short walk to the bridge where it had all begun. There, where Jack had found 3 frightened little girls not so long ago, a newly installed plaque read, "Bridge of Hope, where new beginnings are possible and families are formed." The triplets ran ahead, their laughter dancing over the creek. Marie, hand in hand with Ethan and Jack, watched her daughters with a heart full of love. "Who would have thought," she murmured, "that a terrible day under this bridge would lead to this?" Jack smiled, giving her hand a gentle squeeze. "Sometimes the greatest gifts come from the most unexpected places." Ethan nodded, his voice thick with emotion. "And sometimes you have to lose yourself to truly find what matters." As the sun disappeared over the horizon, the reunited family stood on the Bridge of Hope, symbolizing all they had achieved together: forgiveness, unconditional love, and the true essence of what it means to be a family. And so, under the star-filled sky, a new story began. A story of love, redemption, and the boundless capacity of the human heart to grow and welcome. A story that promised many happy chapters to come.